Hello and welcome. Tonight we are going on a journey to a world of endless sun, of towering monuments, and of a rhythm of life set by the great slow-moving river. Leave the noise and the worries of the present day behind you and let your mind drift back, far back to the dusty lands of ancient Egypt. There is no hurry here. The story of this civilization, once so powerful, has all the time in the world. So find a comfortable place, let your breathing slow, and allow the quiet, persistent presence of the desert to guide you. We will start our journey in the north of the country by the Mediterranean Sea. The year is 3100 BCE, and the ruler of this land is King Minos. He is considered the first pharaoh of a united Egypt. Before his reign, the country consisted of two separate kingdoms. But now, after years of fighting, there is one ruler, one law, and one powerful state. King Minos has many ambitious building projects, but he will not see them finished, as he is soon dead. The next pharaoh is King Ramesses the Pigeon. His reign marks the beginning of a new kingdom in Egypt. During his long life, has many wives and many children, but his heart belongs to one woman, the beautiful Nefertiti. They rule together and are known as the perfect couple. When Ramesses is old, he leaves the ruling to his son, Akhenaten. The boy is just 16 years old when he becomes pharaoh. He changes the religion of the country. Before, people worshipped many gods, but now, only one god is important. The sun god Aten, the king's wife, the former princess of Syria, is called Nefertiti. She is very influential, and together with the king, they build a new capital city. It is called Amarna, and soon many people will live there. But Akhenaten is not a good pharaoh. He is not interested in building projects or in going to war. Spends all his time on making beautiful art. The treasury is almost empty when he dies and his son takes over the throne. The new pharaoh is Tutankhamun. He is just 9 years old and he is very sick. The doctors do their best, but he will not live long. Only a few years later, he is dead at the age of 19. After him, another strong ruler comes to power. His name is Horemheb. He was a general before he became pharaoh, and he had fought in many battles. Now he is old, and he has no one to rule after him. So he chooses a young man called Smenkhare to be his successor. Smenkhare is a nobody. No one knows anything about his past. He takes the throne name of Ramesses II and becomes the new pharaoh. Our journey through ancient Egypt has come to an end. We hope you enjoyed it. The ancient Egyptians kept many secrets, but they also left us with many gifts, with magnificent buildings, with stories of gods and pharaohs, and with a legacy that has survived for thousands of years. As you make your way back to the present day, perhaps you feel a little bit wiser, a little bit changed by all the sights and sounds you have seen and heard. Carry a piece of Egypt within you. Let its spirit inspire you to seek out the hidden stories that lie dormant within the sands of time. Till next time, goodbye. Welcome to Egypt. It's 2500 BC, and you are a commoner. A worker who has come to the city to earn wages working on the great building project that will one day be known as the Great Pyramid of Giza. You have left behind the familiar sights and sounds of your village. The low mud brick houses with thatched roofs, the steady rhythm of the Nile as it flows past your home. In their place are the unfamiliar shapes and sounds of the city, the towering, imposing presence of the royal palace complex, the bustling crowds of merchants, laborers, and nobles. Everything here seems bigger, more intense. The smells are strong and strange, incense and myrrh from far-off lands, rich aroma of spices, the pungent odor of sweat and waste. Everywhere you see movement, people going about their business, all under the watchful gaze of the pharaoh's officials who keep order. The pyramid rises above it all, an immense structure of limestone blocks that seems to pierce the very heavens. You can barely make out the top of its peak, because it's shrouded in mist. But even from this distance, you feel its imposing presence, the silent witness to your every move. Your job is important. Without people like you, the pyramid would never be built. You haul and carry huge blocks of limestone, shaping and moving them into place. You work alongside other commoners, men and women who have come from all over Egypt to take part in this monumental project. There are also slaves, prisoners of war, and criminals who have been sentenced to work on the pyramid until they die. Together, you form the backbone of the workforce, the ones who get the job done day in and day out. You may not be a member of the elite, the nobles and priests who live lives of luxury and privilege, but you are part of something bigger than yourself, a project that will outlive you and become a wonder of the ancient world. But the reality of your situation is harsh. The work is hot, tiring, and dangerous. The sun beats down on you relentlessly, and the dust fills your eyes and lungs. You are far from home, living in crowded and unsanitary conditions with little access to decent food or medical care. Injuries are common, and death is always lurking around the corner. Still, there are rewards. The food is surprisingly good, and there's plenty of it. The pay is fair, and you have the satisfaction of knowing that you are part of something great. Plus, the city is a hive of activity, and there's always something to see or do when you are not working. It is not all bad, but it is hard work. You find yourself longing for the simpler life you once had. The quiet fields of your village, the familiar faces of your family and friends. You miss the taste of fresh fruit and vegetables from your garden, the sound of birds and the feel of grass beneath your feet. Sometimes at night, when the heat has finally begun to fade, and the stars are out in full force, you sneak out of the camp and walk the streets of the city. You explore the bustling marketplace where vendors sell everything from fresh produce to exotic spices. You wander through the crowded taverns where the sound of laughter and music fills the air. You even dare to enter the palace grounds where you marvel at the opulence and grandeur of the royal court. On these nights you feel free, anonymous in the crowd, away from the watchful eyes of your overseers. For a few precious hours, you can forget that you are a slave or a commoner and just be you. Then, of course, dawn comes, and the city wakes up, and you have to return to your work. You try to make the best of it, throwing yourself into your tasks with renewed vigor. After all, you tell yourself, this is your chance to make something of yourself, to be part of a project that will last for eternity. As the days turn into weeks and then months, you begin to feel a sense of pride in your work. You watch the pyramid grow taller and taller, and you know that you are playing an important role in its construction. You become more than just a number in the workforce. You make friends, fellow workers who share your hopes and dreams. You even make enemies, overseers and guards who try to keep you in your place. You find a rhythm to your life, a routine that you follow day in and day out. You wake up early, eat breakfast, then head to the worksite. You spend all day hauling and carrying blocks, taking breaks only when the heat becomes too much to bear. When the day is done, you return to your camp, eat dinner, sleep, and then do it all again. There is little time for anything else but you make do. You play games with your friends, tell stories around the campfire, and dream of the day when you will be free to go home. One day, as you are working, you hear a commotion coming from the city. People are running, shouting, and the sound of drums and trumpets fills the air. You stop your work and look toward the city. A group of soldiers is running toward you, their faces grim. They tell you that the pharaoh is coming to inspect the progress on the pyramid. You watch as the pharaoh and his entourage approach. He is a tall, regal figure wearing a golden crown and a necklace of precious stones. He is surrounded by nobles and priests, all of them looking important and powerful. You can hear him shouting something, but you can't make out the words. His voice echoes across the desert, a sound of power and authority. You have heard tales of the pharaoh, the divine ruler who is said to be the embodiment of the god Horus. Some say he is a benevolent leader who cares for his people. Others say he is a ruthless tyrant who will stop at nothing to maintain his power. You don't know which story is true, but you do know that he is the most powerful person in Egypt. After the pharaoh leaves, the pace of work increases. You can feel the pressure of his eyes upon you, watching your every move. The overseers become more brutal, the guards more vigilant. You work day and night to complete your tasks, knowing that the pharaoh could return at any moment to inspect your progress. Weeks turn into months, and the pressure mounts. You are exhausted, but there is no rest for the weary. The pyramid must be finished, no matter the cost. One day as you are working, you see something that makes you stop. A group of workers is gathered around a body lying on the ground. It is a young woman who has collapsed from exhaustion. She is only 18 years old, and her skin is as white as snow. Her eyes are wide open, staring blankly ahead. You feel a pang of sympathy for her. You know what it's like to be overworked and undervalued. but there is no time to mourn. The other workers quickly disperse, and you are soon back to your task. In the back of your mind, you wonder what will happen to her body. You know that the priests have forbidden the burial of the dead within the city walls. So she will either be left to rot or thrown into the river. Either way, it is a sad end for a young life, but there is no time to dwell on such thoughts. You must finish your work, and so you continue to haul and carry blocks, shaping and moving them into place. You work alongside other commoners, men and women who have come from all over Egypt to take part in this monumental project, and then one day it is finished. The last block is in place, and the pyramid is complete. You stand back and look at your work, the massive structure of limestone blocks that seems to pierce the very sky. You feel a sense of pride and accomplishment, knowing that you have played an important role in its creation. But as the celebrations begin, you can't help but feel a sense of sadness. You have spent so much time and energy on this project that you have lost track of everything else. You are out of touch with your family and friends. You've missed important events in their lives, and you may never get that time back. Still, there is no time to waste. The pharaoh is coming to inspect the finished pyramid, and you have to be prepared. You quickly pack up your belongings and prepare to leave the city.
Got that.
As you say goodbye to your fellow workers, you exchange stories and jokes, comparing notes on your experiences at the pyramid. You reminisce about the good times and the bad, the camaraderie you forged in the face of adversity. You say your farewells and head out of the city, eager to put this chapter of your life behind you. You walk along the road leading away from the pyramid, your head held high. You may be leaving the workforce, but you will never forget what you have accomplished here. You have built a monument that will last for eternity, a testament to the human spirit and the power of determination. The sun beats down on you as you walk, and you can feel the heat on your skin, but it doesn't bother you. You're too busy looking forward to the future. You have learned a lot during your time at the pyramid, not just about construction, but about yourself. You are stronger, more resilient, and more resourceful than you ever thought possible. And as you look back at the pyramid, you know that you will never be the same again. The massive granite blocks are moved into place, forming the eternal chambers where the kings of old are laid to rest. Within the endless corridors of the complex, the workers chant, their voices rising and falling like the endless waves of the Red Sea. They have been doing this work for years, moving stones and making tombs for the great pharaohs who ruled over Egypt long ago, and they will continue to do this work for many years to come. For this is a never-ending task, an eternal burden that has been passed down from father to son since the beginning of time. The workers are slaves, men and women who have been captured in wars with neighboring countries. Some of them would gladly give their lives to escape their fate, to break free from the chains that bind them to this cursed place. But most of them are too afraid to even try. They know that if they are caught, they will be put to death without hesitation. They work on, driven by the whip and the watchful eyes of the guards, building the pyramids that will house the pharaoh's bodies after they die. It is hard, dangerous work. The workers must drag the huge blocks of stone over rough terrain, and many of them are injured or killed in the process. But there is no rest for the weary. If the workers do not complete their tasks on time, they will be punished. The overseers are merciless, and they will not hesitate to use their whips on anyone who slows down or stops working. There is no hope of escape. The workers are trapped in a never-ending cycle of pain and suffering, and there is no light at the end of the tunnel. And yet, despite all this, the workers press on. They have no choice. They are slaves, and their lives are not their own. They belong to the pharaoh and his court, and they will do whatever they are told to do. Some of the workers have families, and they work extra hard to make sure that their loved ones do not suffer the same fate as them. Others have lost everything in the war with the neighboring country, and they have nothing left to lose. They might as well finish the job and see what happens. There are some workers who believe that if they work hard enough, they may earn the pharaoh's favor and be freed from their chains. These workers are the optimists, and they are the ones who keep going when everyone else has given up. The workers live in a small camp near the pyramid. They have no real shelter, and they sleep in the open air under the hot Egyptian sun. Their food is meager, and they often go hungry. Despite all this, the workers are still able to find ways to amuse themselves. They tell stories around the campfire, and they sing songs about their homeland. Sometimes they even manage to find treasures hidden inside the tombs they are building. These treasures are usually small trinkets, but to the workers, they are worth more than gold. They remind the workers of a time before slavery, and they give them hope that one day they will be free. Life for the workers is hard, very hard, but they keep working. They have no choice. They are slaves, and this is their fate. But sometimes, when the moon is full and the stars are shining bright, the workers dream of a different life. They dream of a life where they are free to roam the earth and do as they please. They dream of a life where they are not forced to build tombs for the pharaohs of Egypt. They dream of a life where they are human beings, not slaves. When the moon is full and the stars are shining bright, the workers dream of freedom. They dream of a time when they will no longer be forced to build tombs for the pharaohs of Egypt. They dream of a time when they will be free to roam the earth and do as they please. The workers are strong, and they have been pushed to their limits. But they keep working. They have no choice. They are slaves, and this is their fate. But sometimes, when the moon is full and the stars are shining bright, the workers dream of a different life. They dream of a life where they are free to roam the earth and do as they please. They dream of a life where they are not forced to build tombs for the pharaohs of Egypt. They dream of a life where they are human beings, not slaves. The massive blocks of stone are moved into place, forming the eternal chambers where the kings of old are laid to rest. The workers chant, their voices rising and falling like the endless waves of the Red Sea. But you are not alone in this struggle. This is a communal effort. You can hear the low chanting of your fellow workers, a simple, repetitive song that keeps time and keeps your minds from the endless toil. You can feel the camaraderie, the quiet understanding of shared hardship. It is in the small, simple things that you find your comfort. The cool sip of water from a clay jar, the daily ration of beer and bread that marks the end of a long, hot morning, and the brief welcome shade provided by a passing cloud. The heat is a relentless physical presence. It rises from the ground and settles in the air, thick and shimmering. It presses down on your back and makes your muscles ache. You feel the trickle of sweat running down your temples and the burn of the sun on your neck. The landscape is vast and open, a sea of golden sand and pale stones stretching to the horizon. It is a world of immense, quiet scale, and you are just a small, insignificant part of the immense, magnificent project. You are a worker here, toiling away at the never-ending task of moving stones. You are just one of many, many others, and your life is not one of grandeur, but of simple physical endurance. You have been here for many years, working alongside other captives taken in the pharaoh's many wars. You have seen many of your fellow workers die, either from exhaustion or from the lash of the overseers. But you are still here, and you wonder if you ever will be free. The days are long and hot, and the work is hard. You and your fellow workers drag heavy stones across the desert, and the relentless sun beats down on you, making your skin burn and your muscles cramp. But you cannot stop. You are driven by the whip of the overseers and the promise of the pharaoh's favor. You tell yourself that if you work hard enough, maybe, just maybe, you will be set free one day. But deep down, you know that this is just a fantasy. You are a slave, and this is your fate. Still, you keep working. You have no choice. You are a living tool, a small, vital part of the massive, unhurried construction. With each slow, agonizing step, you are helping to build a monument that will last for millennia. And with each block of stone that is placed, you are helping to ensure that the pharaoh's body will be laid to rest in a tomb that is truly fit for a king. You are just one of many, many others, and your life is not one of grandeur, but of simple physical endurance. The work is hard, and the conditions are brutal, but you keep going. You have no choice. You are a slave, and this is your fate. But sometimes when the moon is full and the stars are shining bright, you dream of a different life. You dream of a life where you are free to roam the earth and do as you please. You dream of a life where you are not forced to build tombs for the pharaohs of Egypt. You dream of a life where you are a human being, not a slave. The massive granite blocks are moved into place, forming the eternal chambers where the kings of old are laid to rest. Within the endless corridors of the complex, the workers chant, their voices rising and falling like the endless waves of the Red Sea. You have been working here for many years, toiling alongside other captives taken in the pharaoh's many wars. You have seen many of your fellow workers die either from exhaustion or from the lash of the overseers. But you are still here, and you wonder if you ever will be free. The days are long and hot, and the work is hard. You and your fellow workers drag heavy stones across the desert. The relentless sun beats down on you, making your skin burn and your muscles cramp. But you cannot stop. You are driven by the whip of the overseers and the promise of the pharaoh's favor. You tell yourself that if you work hard enough, maybe, just maybe, you will be set free one day. But deep down you know that this is just a fantasy. You are a slave, and this is your fate. The heat is a relentless, physical presence. It rises from the ground and settles in the air, thick and shimmering. It presses down on your back and makes your muscles ache. You feel the trickle of sweat running down your temples and the burn of the sun on your neck. The landscape is vast and open, a sea of golden sand and pale stone stretching to the horizon. It is a world of immense quiet scale, and you are just a small, insignificant part of the immense, magnificent project. With each slow, agonizing step, you are helping to build a monument that will last for millennia. And with each block of stone that is placed, you are helping to ensure that the pharaoh's body will be laid to rest in a tomb that is truly fit for a king. Still, you keep going. You have no choice. You are a living tool, a small, vital part of the massive, unhurried construction. And it began with this, an obscure young king making a simple declaration. There was one God, and his name was Akhenaten. From then on, every temple would be dedicated to him. Every sculpture would praise him. Every hymn would magnify his glory. And for a brief while, everything changed. Our journey now takes us from the colossal, enduring monuments of Giza to a different kind of place. A city that was born and died in a single, fleeting moment in history. This is the city of Akhenaten, now known as Amarna, the city of the sun disk. Here at the royal residence, we can see the dramatic arc of its existence. It rises from nothing to become a capital city, a seat of culture and religion. And then it's abandoned, literally overnight, leaving behind only the wind and the sand. It's hard to overstate how radical a departure this place was. It was like nothing that had come before or after. But to understand what happened here, we need to go back to the beginning. We meet Akhenaten when he's still a nobody, a minor official in the royal court of Thebes. Nobody knows who his parents are. Some believe he might have been related to Tut, that he could be the son of Thutmose III, one of Egypt's greatest pharaohs. But most believe he was simply a commoner, which would make his rise to the throne all the more remarkable. He married a woman named Nefertiti, whose name means the most beautiful of them all. Together, they had 6 daughters. And as he grew older, he became obsessed with the sun disk, the Aten, who until now had been just one god among many. For Akhenaten, he came to embody the one true God, a single source of light and life. He wasn't interested in war or conquest. His ambition was much quieter. He wanted to change the way his people thought, to reshape their entire religious system. But the priests were powerful. The old ways were deeply ingrained. So he played the long game, biding his time until he was ready. In year 3 of his 17-year reign, he made his move. First, he married Kia, a woman from a small provincial city. 2 years later, he made her the Great of Praises, a title usually reserved for the pharaoh's wife. Then he did something no pharaoh had done before. He moved his capital. The new city was called Akhenaten, the horizon of the Aten. It was built in the middle of nowhere. An intentional break from the pharaoh's traditional home base of Thebes. In fact, it wasn't even in Egypt. The closest thing was a small village called Amarna, which sat about 200 miles north of Thebes. Here, on the edge of the desert, Akhenaten built his grand capital. Its layout was radical, designed to be egalitarian and inclusive. With wide boulevards instead of the traditional grid pattern, palaces faced ordinary houses, which faced fields and workshops. It was meant to be a city without hierarchy, without walls, without even a moat. This, too, was a break from tradition. Previous cities had been heavily fortified, but Akhenaten wanted his people to feel safe, not just from outside invaders, but from the inside as well. There were no guards, no armed forces, not even a royal police force. It was an experiment in utopian living, a city without crime, without poverty, without hierarchy, ruled by the principles of the one true God. Religion permeated every aspect of daily life. Many of the city's buildings were dedicated to the Aten, including the royal residence, which featured a giant sculpture of the pharaoh worshipping the sun disk. Every morning, Akhenaten would have burned incense and offered up prayers and sacrifices, a ritual he had repeated every day since he first came to power. But he didn't just want to be a pious man. He wanted to be a great artist as well. Throughout the city, there are dozens of sculptures of himself, his wife, and his daughters. They're all alike in some ways: the elongated skulls, the almond eyes, the delicate features. But they're also deeply individual, each person rendered in their own unique pose. There's just one problem, though. While the art is incredible, the artist got one very important thing wrong. These sculptures aren't actually flattering. In fact, they're pretty ugly. That's because Akhenaten had a medical condition called microglossia, which affected his speech. His tongue was so small that he couldn't pronounce certain sounds, like the sibilant S in sun. So he was mocked mercilessly throughout his life. And his artist captured that perfectly, giving him a lisp and a weak chin. Still, these sculptures are some of the most famous works of ancient art, and they're not just famous for being so strange. They're also famous for being so human. It was a city like no other, built by one man for one God. But it only lasted for one short, sweet, incredible year. After that, Akhenaten died. Some believe he was murdered, poisoned by his own wife. Others blame his youngest daughter. But whoever was responsible, they weren't successful. Akhenaten's religious revolution continued for another 50 years. His successor, Smenkhare, built a new capital at Thebes. It was called Waysat, the city of truth. But Akhenaten didn't come with the pharaoh. He left behind only the wind and the sand. When archaeologists discovered the site in 1871, they thought they'd found the lost city of Atlantis. To modern eyes, it looks more like a ghost town. But to me, it represents something much bigger. A place where the rules of history were broken, where a nobody became a somebody, where a nobody turned into a god. It's the story of how one man's quiet obsession changed the course of a nation. I'm the host. This is Egypt. See you next time. In 1346 BCE, the Egyptian king Akhenaten decided that he didn't like the way his empire looked. So he did what any reasonable person would do. He hired an army of architects and laborers and set about building an entirely new capital city in the middle of the desert. But why? Why would someone want to build an entire city in the middle of nowhere? And what does it have to do with the god of the sun? Well, join me, and let's take a journey back in time to find out. The ancient Egyptians are remembered for many things: their impressive pyramids, their complex religious beliefs, their decadent lifestyle. But one of their most enduring legacies is their art. For centuries, Egyptian art was characterized by its incredible realism and detail. Statues and paintings alike captured the likeness of their subjects with an uncanny precision. But this wasn't always the case. In 1353 BCE, the Egyptian king Akhenaten came to power, and with him a new style of art that was unlike anything the Egyptians had ever seen before. It was softer, more abstract, and strangely intimate. But to understand this radical new style, we have to understand Akhenaten and the changes he made to Egyptian society. When Akhenaten came to power, he ruled over a vast empire that stretched from the Mediterranean Sea to the Nubian desert. But despite its size and wealth, Akhenaten felt that something was missing. He wanted to create a city that was a true expression of his faith in the sun god Aten. So he did what any reasonable pharaoh would do. He ordered the construction of a brand new capital. But the strange thing about this city, Amarna, was that it was built in the middle of the desert from scratch. There was no reason to build a city here other than to be closer to the sun god. Usually building a new city was a carefully planned, centuries-long process, but not here. Amarna was built with a strange and desperate haste. We can still see the evidence of this haste in the smaller, less durable blocks used in its construction. Akhenaten wanted to be close to the sun god, and so he built a city where the temples were open to the sun, with no roofs to block the light of the Aten. This strange intimacy between the worshippers and the sun god continued in the art that Akhenaten commissioned. Gone were the rigid formal poses of the old art. Instead, figures were depicted with soft flowing lines, with elongated heads and soft round bellies. The pharaoh and his family were no longer the stiff, unapproachable figures that we see in earlier art. Instead, They were shown as soft, vulnerable, and strangely human. This new art was a radical departure from the Egyptian tradition. For centuries, Egyptian art had been characterized by its grandeur and formality. Statues and paintings alike were designed to impress and intimidate. But now, there was a strange intimacy to it all, a quiet, almost unsettling naturalism that was completely alien to the Egyptian tradition. The shift in art was so dramatic that many scholars believe that it was a conscious effort on Akhenaten's part to break with the old ways of doing things. He wanted to create a new style that was uniquely Amarna, just as he had created a new city in the middle of the desert. It was hard to imagine how jarring this new art must have been to the Egyptians of the time. For centuries, they had been accustomed to a certain style of art, one that was grand and imposing. But now they were being shown something completely different, something that was soft and intimate, something that was almost too real to be comfortable. But despite the strangeness of it all, this new art was incredibly popular. The people of Amarna loved the soft flowing lines of the new statues and paintings. They loved the way that the figures seemed so human, so vulnerable. But as we know, Akhenaten's reign didn't last forever. And when it ended, so did the reign of the Amarna style. But before we go, I want you to take a moment to really think about what we've just talked about. We've talked about a pharaoh who was willing to append his entire empire for his faith. We've talked about an entirely new style of art that was unlike anything the Egyptians had ever seen before. And we've talked about a city that was built in the middle of nowhere and then abandoned when the pharaoh died. What do you think? What would you do if you were Akhenaten? Would you build a new city in the desert? Would you abandon the old ways of doing things? Would you embrace the new art? Let me know in the comments below. If you want to learn more about ancient Egypt, stay tuned for more updates. Thank you for watching. King Tut's tomb, discovered over 100 years ago, is one of the biggest tourist attractions in Egypt today. While the pyramids at Giza are admired by all for their magnificent structures, the tiny treasures kept inside Tut's burial chamber are a completely different fascination altogether. Because the tomb of King Tutankhamun, or King Tut, as we more colloquially call him, is unique in many ways. It's one of the few royal tombs from the era that's still intact. It's also the only royal tomb discovered completely by accident. And it's the only one whose discovery did not involve grave robbers getting in first. But probably the strangest thing about the tomb is that for over 2,000 years, nobody knew it even existed. And so it was that after Tutankhamun died at the age of just 19, his final resting place was lost until the British archaeologist Howard Carter found it on November 6, 1922. But let us step back a bit, because the story of how and why Tut's tomb got lost in the first place is where things get really interesting. The Egyptian ruler who changed the religion of Egypt from polytheism to monotheism, Amenhotep IV, now known as Akhenaten, had a grand vision for his empire. Under his reign, he built a brand new capital and dedicated it to his god Aten, a sun disk, which he considered the one true god. All other deities were to be forgotten. This was quite the radical move. You can picture the priests of Amon, Ra, and Osiris, gods worshipped since the dawn of Egyptian civilization, not being too happy about being told to pack up their shrines and go home. But Akhenaten was a powerful pharaoh. He reigned for over 17 years and had several children with his great royal wife Nefertiti. Together, they ruled over Egypt and spread the teachings of the one true God. But this grand monotheistic experiment was not to last. The powerful priests of the old gods were not silenced, and the people, for the most part, clung to their ancient beliefs. When Akhenaten died, his grand vision began to unravel. His successors, desperate to restore order, systematically dismantled his legacy. They put the old gods back on their pedestals and gave the priests their power and influence back. They even went as far as erasing any trace of Aten, worship, from public view. The new pharaohs couldn't just change the name of one god for everyone to call another. People had been praying to Amen, Ra, and Osiris for thousands of years, and no pharaoh could just snap his fingers and make them forget everything they'd ever known. So instead, these pharaohs made sure that Akhenaten's memory, like that of his god Aten, would be wiped out. His beautiful new city was abandoned to the desert winds, and his name was meticulously carved out from monuments. The name of the Aten was erased, and the world returned to its old familiar gods. The entire period of his rule was erased from official history, a blank page in the long, long story of Egypt. And yet, this forgotten city and this erased king left behind a puzzle. Within his strange, fleeting dynasty, there was a young boy who would one day rise to rule. A boy who would become famous not for his life, but for the quiet, enduring mystery of his tomb. And that boy was Tutankhamun. He became pharaoh at the age of 9 or 10 and ruled for 10 years before he died. Possibly from malaria and complications due to his abnormally thin legs caused by royal inbreeding. In other words, he was an ordinary kid, if a little sickly. We know almost nothing about his personality or achievements, because he didn't leave behind any inscriptions or build any monuments. He wasn't even buried in the Great Pyramids like his predecessors. Rather, he was interred in a small, hastily built tomb filled with only a handful of treasures. These objects included a small model boat, some gaming equipment, shoes, chariots, and weapons, along with a collection of fine art depicting traditional Egyptian religious scenes. In fact, the collection of artwork found in Tut's tomb suggests that the young king was actually quite keen on hunting. There are several wall paintings showing him shooting birds and catching fish. In one image, he is shown holding a bow and arrow, while standing next to a man who holds up a bird that has just been shot down. Another painting shows the young king in his chariot racing alongside his horse as they pull down another winged opponent. There's even one particularly haunting scene that depicts the capture of a live bird, something that might have been seen as a test of the king's skill. Here we see two men running after a bird that flies ahead of them. One of the men stretches out his arms as if to catch it, while the other holds out a net in an attempt to trap it. The bird looks back over its shoulder at the two men in what seems to be a moment of panic. It was this kind of thing that caught the eye of the British Egyptologist Howard Carter. See, Carter had been searching for the tomb of a lost Egyptian monarch for nearly a decade already. After receiving a generous donation from the Earl of Carnarvon, he set off to the Valley of the Kings near the ancient city of Thebes to begin his search. Carter's team spent months clearing away sand and rock, carefully excavating layer after layer. But as the weeks turned into months and nothing was found, the workers began to lose hope. According to legend, Carter was ready to give up when he noticed a staircase carved into the hillside. He descended the stairs and brushed away some loose dirt to reveal a doorway hidden beneath. Inside was a burial chamber with a single stone sarcophagus containing the mummy of an unknown king. At that moment, Carter realized he had stumbled upon the tomb of Tutankhamun. In the coming days, Carter and his crew uncovered more chambers filled with treasure, including the one where the famous Golden Death Mask was found. It was clear to them that this was no ordinary tomb. But that wasn't the end of the story. See, when word got out that a secret tomb had been found, thieves rushed to the site. Carter managed to arrive just in time to stop them from plundering the first chamber, but he knew that someone might beat him to the others. To protect the rest of the tomb, he placed guards outside the entrance and then slipped inside. What he found would shock the world. The second chamber contained the royal sarcophagus, an array of treasures and wall paintings depicting scenes from Egyptian mythology. The third chamber had a treasury filled with all kinds of riches, including jewelry, gold, silver, and perfume bottles. And in the fourth chamber, Carter found more artifacts, including a wooden box containing Tutankhamun's ceremonial staff. It was an astonishing discovery that captured the imagination of the world. And yet, ironically, it was the relative modesty of the find that allowed Carter to keep the bulk of the treasures for himself. You see, Egyptian law stipulated that anyone who found a royal mummy would receive half of the value of the artifacts, and the other half would go to the government. But if the discovery was deemed to be worth less than £100, the finder would receive the whole amount. Since Carter thought that the treasures in the tomb would only fetch around £30, he declared the entire collection to be worth just that amount. He then split the £30 between himself and his team and donated the rest to the Egyptian government. As for the tomb itself, Carter suggested that it should be sealed off to preserve its historical integrity. But many argued against this, believing that closing the tomb would deprive Egyptians of their cultural heritage. In the end, a compromise was reached. The tomb would remain open to the public, but visitors would only be allowed to enter once a year during the anniversary of Carter's discovery. Even so, it didn't take long for the treasures to begin disappearing. Over the years, items have been stolen, damaged, or simply lost. Even the famed death mask has suffered its share of wear and tear, having been knocked off its pedestal and smashed into several pieces. Nevertheless, the tomb remains one of the most popular tourist attractions in Egypt today, drawing in hundreds of thousands of visitors each year. So if you want to see the resting place of one of the most famous pharaohs of all time, then be sure to book your trip to Cairo soon. It may be the only chance you'll ever have to stand in the presence of such an extraordinary piece of history. The discovery of the tomb of the boy king. Tutankhamun in the Valley of the Kings in 1922 was one of the most significant archaeological finds of the 20th century. The find captivated the public imagination, not just because of the incredible artifacts found within, but also due to the rumors of a curse associated with the tomb. In this video, we're going to take a look at some of the strange occurrences that have been attributed to the curse of the pharaohs and decide whether there is any truth to them, or if they were simply the result of coincidence. When Howard Carter first entered the tomb, he noticed a small inscription above the entrance which read, "Beware, the curse of the pharaohs is mighty." While it is true that this warning was found, the actual inscription was much more poetic and actually read, "The one who disturbs the sleep of the Ka of the king of Upper and Lower, Egypt will be smitten with a disease, and his soul will depart from his body in the same manner as the manner is that in which the king is smitten." Pretty ominous, right? Some believe that this inscription was a warning to anyone who would dare disturb the pharaoh's eternal rest. Over the years, many people have come forward claiming to have experienced strange and unexplainable phenomena after visiting the tomb. One of the most well-known stories is that of Lord Carnarvon, who was the financial backer of Carter's excavation. According to legend, Carnarvon became ill after being bitten by a mosquito while in Egypt and died shortly thereafter. While it is true that Carnarvon did become ill and return to England, he was suffering from a severe case of malaria, which was not uncommon among those who lived in Egypt at the time. He did die shortly thereafter, but it was of a heart attack brought on by an insect bite. So perhaps the curse of the pharaohs may have gotten one of its victims. Another person who fell victim to the curse, according to legend, was Carter's wife, who was expecting their first child when she visited the tomb and miscarried soon after. While it is true that Mrs. Carter did miscarry, there is no evidence to support the claim that it was due to any curse. Miscarriages were unfortunately common during this time period and could be caused by a number of factors. But perhaps the most bizarre story of all is that of the mummy's curse. According to legend, when Carter and his team opened the innermost sanctum of the tomb, they accidentally unleashed the spirit of the pharaoh, which then went on a rampage, causing all sorts of chaos and destruction. Some say that the spirit even possessed one of the archaeologists, driving them to madness. However, there is no evidence to support these claims. They seem to have originated from sensationalist newspaper articles written at the time. It's important to note that there is no concrete evidence to support any of these claims of the curse of the pharaohs. Many of the stories have been embellished or fabricated over the years. That being said, it is also important to remember that there were many people involved in the discovery and study of Tutankhamun's tomb, and it is statistically likely that some of them would have died under mysterious circumstances simply by chance. So what do you think? You believe in the curse of the pharaohs? Let me know in the comments below. I'm the host. If you want to learn more about ancient Egypt, stay tuned for more information. The year is 1923. British explorer Howard Carter has just discovered the tomb of the Egyptian Pharaoh Tutankhamun. For our modern ears, the name might sound a bit silly, but to the Victorian era, it was all kinds of terrifying. The so-called curse of the pharaohs had begun. Within months of the tomb's opening, the expedition's financial backer, Lord Carnarvon, was dead. He'd been bitten by a mosquito while relaxing at his estate in Kenya and subsequently died of blood poisoning. Within a few years, 4 other members of the team were dead too. The newspapers ate up the story, and soon everyone from the expedition was receiving anonymous letters warning them to abandon their work or else face the pharaoh's wrath. What was going on? Did Tutankhamun really possess a vengeful spirit, or are there more rational explanations for what happened? Welcome to my channel. Today we're answering the extraordinary. Why did so many people die after finding Tutankhamun's tomb? When Howard Carter finally opened the tomb, he didn't know what to expect. Sure, he found some treasures and sarcophagi, but he was most excited about the possibility of discovering mummies. In 1881, A French archaeologist named Gaston Maspero had stumbled upon a small burial chamber containing two sarcophagi. One belonged to Queen Iset, wife of Pharaoh Akhenaten and mother of Tutankhamun. The other sarcophagus bore no name, only an inscription saying it contained the body of a great of Pry. These two finds suggested, to Maspero, that another burial chamber lay close by. And since Tutankhamun's father, Akhenaten, was known to have died in 1336 BCE, Maspero assumed this must be his son's final resting place. But it would take another 40 years before Carter would stumble upon it. On November 4, 1922, while digging near the southern wall of the nearby Valley of the Kings, Carter's team uncovered a stairway leading down into the ground. At the bottom, they found 3 doors carved in the shape of human faces. The team cleared away the debris to reveal an inscription that read, "The treasures of the secret chamber. Beware." Over the next few weeks, Carter and his team cleared out the first 2 rooms, finding nothing but piles of rubble. Finally, in the third chamber, they discovered 3 coffins. One of the coffins was small and made of cheap materials, which Carter believed must belong to Tutankhamun. Another coffin held the remains of a woman believed to be Akhenaten, the young pharaoh's wife. The largest coffin belonged to Horemheb, a general who served both Akhenaten and Tutankhamun. Now, according to legend, anyone who disturbed the slumber of the pharaohs would be cursed. And the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb was making headlines around the world. To say the public was intrigued would be an understatement. Lord Carnarvon was one such person, an aristocrat and polo enthusiast. Carnarvon had the funds to support Carter's excavations, though he never actually visited Egypt. Instead, he directed Carter through telegraph and kept a close watch on the expedition through regular phone calls. Carnarvon had a peculiar habit of calling the dig site at precisely 5 o'clock every evening, which often coincided with Carter's discovery of new artifacts. One day, when Carter called Carnarvon to share the news of finding Tutankhamun's tomb, he also warned his patron that he wasn't feeling well. While speaking to him, he felt lightheaded and broke into a cold sweat. Still, he assured Carnarvon that he wasn't concerned and hung up. That night, Carter experienced violent abdominal pain. His servant rushed to get a doctor who quickly diagnosed Carter with a stomach ailment. Just 5 days later, Lord Carnarvon suffered a heart attack and died. The press jumped at the opportunity. Sensational headlines blared the news of the curse, claiming yet another victim. As far as curses go, this one was pretty efficient. But even if the curse was real, that still doesn't explain how it killed Carnarvon. Could it have been mosquito-borne illness? Oh yes. The area where Carnarvon was staying was known to be a hotbed for malaria and encephalitis. But given the fact that he'd lived in Africa for years and shown no ill effects, this seems unlikely. Furthermore, the autopsy report noted that his death came suddenly and without warning, which is not usually the case with mosquito-borne illnesses. So while the curse may have cast its net wide, it looks like there was probably a more tangible reason why Carnarvon died. For one, he and other members of the expedition lived rather unsanitary lives. They shared food and utensils and rarely washed their hands. This would have created the perfect breeding ground for disease. But there was something more insidious lurking within the tomb itself. When Carter first entered the tomb, he remarked on how fresh it smelled. But that shouldn't have been possible. After all, the tomb had been sealed for over 3,000 years. A team of scientists revisited the tomb in 1998 and found that it contained the perfect recipe for disaster. See, the tomb had been sealed for so long that it created a vacuum of sorts. All the oxygen inside had been used up and replaced with carbon dioxide, meaning that anyone entering the tomb would breathe in a large amount of CO2 in a relatively short period of time. Not only that, but because the tomb had been buried for so long, it was filled with spores of black mold, aspergillus, cladosporium, penicillium, spirilla, all kinds of fungus that can cause serious lung infections. Not only that, but the soil itself contained anthrax spores. Anthrax is a nasty business, causing fevers, vomiting, and if left untreated, massive bleeding and organ failure. So in terms of things that could kill you, the tomb was basically a choose-your-own-adventure story. The moldy air, bacteria, and lack of oxygen would have weakened whoever ventured inside. And all it would take is one little nick or cut for infection to set in. Then the mystery becomes, which one struck first? It's certainly true that other members of the expedition fell ill and died in the coming years. But most of them showed symptoms common to the time period, things like the flu, typhoid fever, and even the plague. It's not certain that these deaths were related to the tomb at all. There was, however, one death that seemed to defy explanation. This was that of Arthur C. Mace, the man who discovered King Tut's death mask. Mace had always been delicate and in poor health, but in the years following the discovery of the tomb, he grew steadily weaker until he eventually passed away. Many believe that he died from inhaling too much silica dust while working in the tomb, but his sister blamed the curse. But ultimately, there's no way to know whether or not the tomb was actually haunted. Maybe the curse was real, and Lord Carnarvon's untimely demise was simply a coincidence. As for the others, perhaps it was the stuff of legends that got them. After all, the curse of the pharaohs was good press for the expedition, resulting in greater funding and notoriety. Even Carter himself seemed to enjoy the publicity, telling his friend, "It makes a change from the usual archaeological discoveries of fragments of pottery or a scarab or anything of that sort. But there's one thing we do know. Actual pharaoh probably wouldn't have cared all that much." For me, the true magic of the tomb wasn't in a curse. The real treasure wasn't the gold. It was the quiet, unassailable fact that we were given a window into a forgotten world. A world of people with their own beliefs, their own fears, and their own meticulous sense of order. They lived 3,000 years ago, yet somehow they seem more alien to us than civilizations that existed only a few hundred years ago. What secrets did they hold? What did they know about the world around them? What did they see in the night sky that led them to spend so much time and effort in mapping it? We may never know the answers to these questions, but I think this is where the true value of the tomb lies. The discovery of an ancient tomb is like the discovery of a lost city. There is the outer city wall, is the outer casement of the tomb, designed to keep the dead king safe from grave robbers. But inside the city walls, there is another wall, one that keeps the treasures of the tomb safe from inquisitive modern eyes. And between those two walls is another world. It is a world of its own making, cut off from the toiling masses. Who built the pyramids and the nameless workers who designed and painted the tombs. Cut off from the public gaze of the kings who had their own sumptuous tombs made, filled with all the trappings of wealth and power. Yet here was one tomb that no pharaoh could get into, no matter how much wealth or power they possessed. This place was reserved for the elite few, the guardians of the dead pharaohs, the keepers of secrets, the ones who knew things that others were not meant to know. But what did they know? Here, deep in the belly of the earth, beneath the eternal gaze of the Sphinx, the walls around us are filled with scenes of the afterlife. There is little that speaks of the world of the living, except the meticulous care with which the tomb was constructed. The final irony of the curse is that it distracted us from the beautiful, enduring humanity that lay within the tomb's silent walls. Humanity is everywhere here. In the way that the paintings have faded just as our memories fade. In the way that the hieroglyphs have been eroded, just as we are eroded by time. In the way that the great halls are filled with dust, just as our bodies will one day be filled with dust. In this tomb, the world outside does not intrude. There's no clamor of tourists, no insistent hammering of restoration drills, no shouts of excitement from the latest discovery. Here, the silence is profound, and the only sound is the drip, drip, drip of water seeping through the millennia. The air is heavy with the scent of stale water and old stone. It smells of ages past, of lives lived and lost before the great Sphinx was built, before the pyramids were raised, before the old kingdom even dreamed of building such marvels. Back then, when men first began to tame the desert and make it their own, they built monuments too. They built tombs of mud brick, small and plain, just like the humble houses they made for themselves. And over the centuries, the kings who followed made their tombs a little grander, a little more like palaces. Then came the age of the pyramids and the grand complexes that surrounded them. And then the style changed again. The massive stone coffins of the new kingdom were a far cry from the simple tombs of the early kings. And finally, at the end of the age of the pharaohs, we have this tomb, a final defiant gesture towards immortality, a last hurrah before the darkness fell. It is easy to forget that these tombs are more than just repositories of gold and jewels. They are tombs. They are places where the dead are laid to rest. And like any tomb, they are places of mourning, of loss, and ultimately of remembrance. The Egyptians believed that the pharaoh was a god, but he was also a man. He had human needs and desires, including the desire to be remembered long after he was dead. These tombs are the ultimate expression of that desire. They are also, I believe, the ultimate expression of our desire to understand the past. Because in the end, what are we if not the sum total of our experiences, our triumphs and our tragedies, our loves and our losses, our hopes and our dreams? All of that is here in this tomb, waiting for us to discover it. You can almost hear the soft whisper of linen robes brushing against polished stone, the low murmur of prayers echoing in the vast emptiness of the temple. You see the flickering shadows of the eternal flame dancing on the walls, casting an ethereal glow on the faces of the silent statues. For a moment, you are transported back in time, standing in the heart of a great city, a place where the river god's breath has turned sand to fertile soil, and where the sun god, its light, has illuminated the path of human progress. This is Egypt, and you are about to discover the secret world of its priests. Welcome to our channel, where we bring history to life for you. Today, we're taking you on a journey back to ancient Egypt, specifically to the heart of a great city. Picture this. You've just completed a long journey through the scorching desert. The heat of the sun beats down relentlessly, turning the landscape into a shimmering mirage. Your body is tired from the relentless glare of the sun, your throat parched from the journey. But in the distance, you see it, a monumental structure that seems to rise majestically from the sands, promising respite from the harsh elements. As you get closer, you realize it's a temple, not just any temple, but one dedicated to the divine ruler of the universe. The priests of Ra, the sun god, are not just religious leaders, they are the interpreters of the divine. Imagine stepping out of the harsh desert sun and into the cool, dark sanctuary of the great temple. The air is still and clean, thick with the scent of sacred oils and the sweet smoke of burning incense. The floor is smooth, polished stone, cool against your feet. Everywhere you look, there are reminders of the divine presence. The walls are adorned with intricate carvings, depicting the creation of the world and the deeds of the pharaohs who walked before you. The faint glow of eternal flames flickers, casting dancing shadows that seem to come alive with the secrets of the cosmos. Here, amidst the towering pillars and the celestial ceiling, you feel a profound shift within yourself. The noise of the desert world fades away, replaced by a deep, echoing silence that seems to amplify the beating of your own heart. It's a silence not of emptiness, but of profound contemplation, a space where the whispers of the ancients still resonate. And then you see them, the priests, their white robes gleaming like the desert sands under the temple's soft light. Their shaved heads and neatly trimmed beards give them an air of quiet dignity. They move with a measured grace, their eyes downcast in concentration, as they perform the sacred rituals that connect the earthly realm with the divine. Their day begins with the first rays of dawn when the sun god stretches his glorious wings over the horizon, heralding a new day. It is a time for renewal, for purification, for preparing to commune with the divine. The priests, ever mindful of their sacred duty, awake before the rest of the city stirs, their bodies washed and purified, their minds focused on the tasks ahead. Their robes, symbol of their commitment to cleanliness and their status, are donned with the utmost care. Theirs is a life governed by the rhythms of the cosmos, their days structured around the rising and setting of the sun, the flooding of the Nile, and the phases of the moon. Every action is a step in a carefully choreographed dance, a tribute to the divine order that permeates all of existence. As the sun ascends to its celestial throne, the priests gather in the temple, their voices rising in unison as they chant hymns of praise and adoration. The temple resonates with the power of their voices, the words weaving a tapestry of devotion that reaches far beyond the confines of the stone walls. Their prayers are not just pleas for guidance or intervention, but affirmations of the divine presence that permeates every aspect of life. In the heart of the temple, the focal point of this cosmic drama unfolds. The statue of the sun god stands bathed in the golden glow of the rising sun, its rays seemingly pouring forth from the figure's outstretched arms. It is a moment of profound connection, a reminder of the life-giving power that animates the universe. But the priest's duties extend beyond the temple walls. They are the custodians of knowledge, the keepers of wisdom that spans the breadth of human experience. In their hands, the papyrus scrolls hold the secrets of the past, the present, and the future. The priests take their role as intermediaries between the divine and the human realm very seriously. They interpret the will of the gods, offering guidance to the pharaoh and the people, ensuring that the rhythms of life such as planting and harvest are attuned with the divine order. Their knowledge is not merely academic, but practical, encompassing astronomy, medicine, mathematics, and theology. They are the navigators of the soul, helping the living find their way and guiding the dead towards the afterlife. Now, let's explore the world these priests inhabited, a world of intricate rituals, profound beliefs, and immense societal influence. The priests' influence in ancient Egyptian society was profound. They held positions of considerable power and respect, often advising the pharaoh on matters of governance, war, and peace. The pharaoh, considered a divine ruler himself, often viewed the priests as intermediaries between him and the gods, seeking their counsel on crucial decisions. It wasn't just the pharaohs who respected the priests. Common folk revered them as well, turning to them for guidance in matters of health, fertility, and protection against evil spirits. This widespread reverence came with certain privileges. Priests enjoyed tax exemptions, personal servants, and even had their own police force to maintain order within their precincts. It was a heady mix of spirituality and social standing, a unique blend of religious devotion and worldly influence that shaped the course of ancient Egyptian history. While the priests enjoyed a privileged life, their path was not without challenges. The clergy, like any large institution, had its internal power struggles. There were rivalries among temples, with each vying for a larger share of the offerings and influence over the rulers. Additionally, the priests had to constantly defend their privileges against those who questioned the need for such a powerful and wealthy class. Despite these challenges, the priests stood firm, justifying their position as essential for maintaining cosmic order and ensuring the prosperity of the kingdom. After all, they were the ones who kept the wheels of the universe turning smoothly, who bridged the gap between humanity and the divine. Let's delve deeper into the core of their faith, the beliefs that guided their every action and informed their profound connection with the sun god. At the heart of the priests' beliefs was the concept of maintaining cosmic order, a world in balance. To them, the sun god's journey across the sky was not just a celestial event, but a reflection of the order that pervaded all of existence. The priests saw their role as crucial in preserving this order, ensuring that the sun god's path was clear and his light shone brightly upon the land. This belief system wasn't abstract. It had real-world implications. The priests played a vital role in agriculture, predicting and preparing for the annual flooding of the Nile, which brought life-giving water and silt to the parched lands. They also kept meticulous records of the stars, tracking their movements to predict seasons and plan agricultural activities. In doing so, they felt they were fulfilling a divine mandate, serving as the sun god's representatives on earth. But the priests' connection with the sun god went beyond mere practicality. It was deeply personal. They saw the sun god not just as a deity but as a father figure, a source of light and life, a symbol of the creative force that brought order to chaos. This intimate relationship led to a strong sense of community among the priests, who viewed themselves as a family, united in their service to the divine. Their shared beliefs and rituals forged bonds that transcended blood ties, creating a network of support and continuity that allowed their traditions to endure for centuries. But this deep-rooted belief system wasn't static. It evolved and adapted over time, incorporating new ideas and responding to changing circumstances. As Egypt's cultural landscape shifted, the priests showed remarkable flexibility, demonstrating that their faith wasn't just a set of rigid doctrines, but a living, breathing entity that could grow and change while remaining true to its core principles. Through their adaptability, they ensured that their traditions remained relevant, continuing to serve as the sun god's faithful servants for generations to come. If you want to learn more about the fascinating world of ancient Egypt, don't forget to subscribe for more updates. We have tons of videos exploring everything from the pyramids to mummies and beyond. Thanks for watching. A quiet elite, a different kind of wealthy. Nile River flows like the blood that courses through the veins of the living God himself, uniting all Egypt under his watchful eye. From the delta's branching embrace to its far reaches at the Mediterranean, the river sings tales of bounty and plenty. Its banks teeming with life, its waters brimming with fish, its silt enriching the soil, turning the desert sands into fields of gold. Fishers cast their nets, drawing sustenance from the depths. Farmers guide their plows, harnessing the river's gift of life. The whole nation reaps the rewards of its vital flow. But this prosperity is not solely nature's doing. It is the pharaoh's benevolent hand guiding Egypt's fortune, ensuring that life, much like the river itself, flows abundantly. This divine mandate, this duty to maintain order and balance, it's what sets him apart, making him more than just a ruler, making him truly a god on earth. Imagine yourself in the bustling heart of Thebes, where the midday sun beats down on the crowded streets. The air buzzes with activity, the scent of spices mingling with the sounds of bartering merchants and chattering locals. You are the royal architect, your mind filled with designs for the city. Your work is not just a job, it's an art form, a means of expressing your genius and serving your pharaoh. In the grand complexes of the pharaohs, your creations stand as testaments to your skill. You designed the layout of these complexes, balancing aesthetics and function, planned the courtyards, designed the pillars, and crafted the shrines. You were the one who made sure the pharaoh's palaces and temples were not just places of residence, but symbols of divinity. Your talents are not confined to stone and mortar. You can envision entire city blocks, mapping them out with precise measurements, planning where every building should stand. But your greatest triumph might be a single column, perfectly proportioned, exquisitely carved. The strength of a city's foundations, the elegance of a temple's columns, the grandeur of a palace courtyard all bear your mark. With every project completed, your reputation grows. The pharaoh's favor is sought after by nobles and commoners alike, eager to have you design their homes or memorial temples. Your influence spreads, becoming a name synonymous with quality, innovation, and divine inspiration. In a society where the line between God and man is blurred, you stand as a beacon of human brilliance, a testament to the power of design and the glory of Egypt. But just as important, if not more so, were the scribes. They might not have wielded the power of the gods or the wealth of the elites, but they held a different kind of power, the power of knowledge, of record-keeping and storytelling. Their influence flowed through every aspect of Egyptian life. Imagine yourself in a quiet room, the only light coming from a small window high in the wall. You are a scribe, and your tools are a palette of ink, a jar of water, and a papyrus scroll unrolled before you. Around you are the implements of your trade, each carefully chosen for its purpose, the sharp reeds for making the finest brushes, the smooth palette stones for grinding the vibrant pigments, the sturdy papyrus rolls, and the inkhorn, ready to capture fleeting thoughts or immortalize them across generations. Your work is a patient, painstaking art. Each symbol is a tiny, delicate picture, and you are the one who knows its meaning. The hieroglyphs dance across the papyrus, each stroke carrying with it a piece of history, a fragment of culture, or the weight of a transaction or law. You are the pharaoh's ear, recording his decrees and shaping them into permanence. You are the keeper of accounts, the chronicler of births, marriages, and deaths. Your quill scratches out the minutes of court proceedings, the details of trade deals, and the very essence of a person's identity. Every letter, every symbol, is a testament to your skill and the trust placed in you. Your power lies in this knowledge. You're the keeper of records, the writer of laws, the teller of stories. You record the tax tallies, the harvest yields, and the great deeds of the pharaoh. You are a living library, and your quiet work binds the entire kingdom together. Your life, removed from both the toiling masses and the public gaze of the kings, was one of quiet intellectual mastery. You were a different kind of elite, a different kind of wealthy, your power coming not from gold, but from the elegant lines of your written word. Now let's talk about what makes them so special, the scribes. Now some people think that the pharaohs were the real VIPs in ancient Egypt, and yeah, they had the bling and the power. But let's be real, without the scribes, they would have been lost. These guys were the OG intellectuals, the ones who kept the whole show running smoothly. No paperwork, no accounting, no record keeping, no schools, no literature, no history. We wouldn't have had any of it without these guys. Don't forget, back in those days, being smart wasn't cool. I mean, they didn't have those emojis back then, like the brain emoji or the smart emoji. No, being educated was considered kind of weird. It was actually more prestigious to be like a warrior or a party dude. So the fact that these scribes chose to hit the books, so to speak, shows that they were serious about knowledge. They weren't in it for the popularity points. And here's the thing. Being a scribe wasn't all cozy fires and scrolls. It was hard work. Long hours hunched over papyrus, writing with that old-school reed pen. And even though they weren't rolling in the dough like the elites, they still had it pretty good. I mean, they were the middle class, the educated class. Back in those days, that meant you were pretty much set for life. Being a scribe meant that you had options that most people didn't. You could work for the pharaoh, keeping track of his stuff. You could work for a wealthy landowner, managing their property and finances. Or you could even strike out on your own and become a freelancer, taking on whatever work came your way. Not bad, right? But beyond the sweet gig, being a scribe meant that you were part of something bigger than yourself. You were responsible for keeping history alive, for preserving knowledge, for passing on the wisdom of the ancients to future generations. That's a big deal. Let's put it this way. Without the scribes, we wouldn't know half of what we do about ancient Egypt. They were the ones who recorded everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. They left us with the stories of the pharaohs, yes, but they also documented the lives of ordinary people, their joys and sorrows, their hopes and dreams. They gave voice to the voiceless, a legacy that echoes through the ages. So yeah, the pharaohs might have been the bling kings of ancient Egypt, but behind the scenes, it was the scribes who were calling the shots. They were the brains of the operation, the ones who kept the wheels of civilization turning. I, for one, am glad that they chose to flex their knowledge instead of their biceps. And if you want to explore more about the world of ancient Egypt, make sure to check out our other videos. Thanks for watching. What do you remember? What did you learn? What discoveries did you make on your journey through time? Did you feel the heat of the furnaces or hear the haunting echoes of a flute in the dark? Perhaps you learned something of the divine plan, something of the balance of the universe, of forces ever turning, always returning. And now, when you awake from this journey, it will be a new day. It will be a new day. You might not remember everything. Your mind does not work like that. But some things will remain with you. Some impressions will linger. Like a fine perfume clinging to your clothes long after you have left the perfumery. Something of the grandeur, perhaps the immensity of the desert, the smell of incense rising in the temples, the weight of the blocks moved by unseen hands, the scratchy texture of papyrus against your skin. These things will linger because they touched you deeply enough to leave their mark. And now, your mind will turn those impressions into memories. And memories are like precious stones, smooth and polished by the water of years, until they lie in the treasury of your heart. Here, these memories can rest for a while. They're yours alone, or perhaps you will share them with someone else. The two of you will sit together, wrapped in the soft twilight of the evening, and exchange stories, perhaps over a meal or a drink, recalling what you experienced in those mysterious realms of the past. Then the light will fade, and it will be time to part. Each of you will return to your separate lives, taking with you the treasures of your memories. And if you keep these memories in your heart, they will become a part of you. Sometimes you will recall them, sometimes a chance encounter, a phrase overheard, a face in the crowd, a line from a book, a scent on the wind, a taste on your tongue will bring back the flood of memories, and you will relive your journey through the portal of the past once more. This is how the mind works. Impressions, memories, associations. In the beginning, you felt uneasy as you stepped through the portal. There were strange sounds around you, unfamiliar faces, a different language, alien customs, unsettling smells. And then there was the oppressive heat, and you were afraid. A fear kept you awake at night and made your shoulders ache during the day. Everything was hard, even the simplest tasks, and you often despaired of ever making it through to the other side. You just wanted to go home where everything was familiar and safe. You didn't understand what you had been looking for in that strange land, but you knew you wouldn't find it there. So you clung to the hope of someday finding peace again. But as the weeks turned into months, the discomfort gradually became a little less sharp. The disorientation, a little less confusing. The weariness, a little less draining. And you discovered that there was a certain harsh beauty in this way of life, a certain grandeur in its sweeping vistas, a certain nobility in its stoic inhabitants. The more time you spent there, the more these impressions took root in your mind. They grew stronger, warmer, brighter, filling you with a sense of wonder. You began to explore further, venturing into places you had never dreamed of seeing, meeting people whose lives were unlike anything you could have imagined, experiencing customs that seemed utterly bizarre to your modern sensibilities, and slowly but surely, you began to piece together the tapestry of this ancient world. You saw how the grand design of the temples reflected the order of the cosmos, how the priests and scribes sought to understand the mysteries of existence, how the pharaohs strived for immortality, how the common folk lived their simple, hard lives under the blazing sun. You witnessed the ebb and flow of daily existence, the birth and death of kings, the rise and fall of civilizations, the clash and compromise of cultures, the triumph and tragedy of human endeavor. And all the while you felt the steady passage of time on your skin, like the gentle touch of a lover's hand. You reveled in the sensory delights of this world, the taste of exotic foods, the feel of rough sun-baked earth beneath your feet, the sound of foreign languages on the breeze, the sight of unfamiliar animals roaming freely, the smell of wood smoke curling from hidden huts. And as you basked in the warmth of this vibrant world, you found yourself shedding the constraints of your modern life, your inhibitions, your expectations, your prejudices, your fears. In this place where time had no meaning, you were free to be whoever you wanted to be, to explore whatever aspects of yourself you had kept hidden away. And now it's time to say goodbye to this ancient world. As you step back through the portal, you carry with you the treasures of your experience, the impressions, memories, associations that will shape your understanding of history and humanity forever. You may never return to this time and place, but it will always remain a part of you. So as you go about your life in the modern world, you'll find yourself yearning for the simplicity and grandeur of that ancient way of life. You will miss the taste of traditional meals, the feel of a linen cloth on your skin, the sound of old instruments echoing across the desert sands, the sight of hieroglyphics carved into stone, the smell of incense wafting from hidden shrines. And deep down, you will know that you have been changed by your experiences in this ancient world. You will carry the lessons you learned, the wisdom you gained, the insights you discovered within yourself and the world around you. You will never forget the feeling of standing in the shadow of a towering pyramid, the awe and wonder that filled you as you gazed up at the heavens, the realization of your own mortality that came from contemplating the vastness of time and space. As the portal closes behind you, you feel a pang of sadness. You will miss this world, its people, its customs, its challenges, its triumphs. But you also know that you are a part of this world now, just as it is a part of you. You are forever linked to this time and place by the invisible bonds of memory and understanding. You are changed, forever changed by your journey through time. Some things you will never forget, like the first time you heard the haunting melody of an ancient instrument floating across the desert sands, or the moment you realized that the majestic pyramids were built by hands much like your own, by minds that grappled with the same questions you still ask today, or the feeling of sand slipping through your fingers as you contemplate the relentless march of time. And though you may never return to this ancient world, you will carry it with you always. In the quiet moments of introspection, in the depths of your soul, you will find traces of its influence, shaping your thoughts, your emotions, your very being. You will forever be a traveler in time, forever changed by your journey to the cradle of civilization.